get two different stations here? Hi guys.
Hello.
My name's Dina Pierce, and I'm the media. Oh, I've got you. Yeah, I got you heard somewhere. They obviously yeah, so I know I've talked to you before. I'm here to do, if you guys need an interview from Ohio EPA, just give me a holler.
Okay,
right.
Sounds good. Thank you. My name's Elliot Schaefer. I'm running for mayor of Fostoria.
Really?
I'm a candidate, yes.
Are you working at a news outlet now, or you're just here to film for yourself?
Well, I run the Fostoria Forum on
okay.
Facebook, and so I try to just capitalize on capturing
Sure.
as much as I can for community.
Give me your first name again. I'm terrible with names.
Elliot Schaefer,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, good to have you here.
We'll be going live and trying to stream as much as we can. So
I don't know if you did the table. You don't have to sign in. That's puts you on the mailing list.
Okay.
On the mailing list. Yeah. I think you want to present any testimony tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Put your
name on the. Okay.
And say, hand it to me. Yellow cards are for questions, because rather than passing the microphone around, we'll just have people write their question down and we'll ask it. And a copy of the presentation is at the end of the table.
Perfect. I'll grab one of those. Thank you. I appreciate it. No plugs? Oh, man.
There's one on the wall there, kind of waist high.
Oh, yeah, there it is. They're white. There you go.
They want to see some pictures?
Sure.
Everybody don't.
Oh, man.
This is where the train went over.
That is where the train tipped over, right there, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then here's what we get to live with. This is our new ski resort. I put a look,
Ski resort.
behind somebody's house.
Can you imagine waking up?
I live at least a block and a half away from it.
Yeah. No. Gets it.
And then after that, but we went to, if you get a affordable while in time here in town, he has the ability to come take his vehicle and send it away for you. It is a little bit on the pricey side, it's like but we went ahead and did that. Yeah. And it broke it down into nicely for us to understand there's like certain levels of like this is EPA actual versus this is marketing versus you have protected but not things like that. But so we did that, and then at the same time, like a couple of months later, found out that the health department does free water testing for food and then we started listening to the so we did that, and the tests were like so really, yeah, it had increased on most of them, but the results of the health department, they're like everything is accurate. Like, why does this test say please drink our water? Like, it's trying to me, that's not good. You know, something's not adding up here. So, yes, actually, I wash my face with that at night. I mean, it's scary. I mean, it's scary when you're scared of the water in your
Yes, yeah.
I know, it's such a bittersweet thing. I mean, it's so hard, but yeah, it's a frustrating thing, but
Good evening, folks. Welcome to Ohio EPA's public meeting regarding receipt of application for a national pollutant discharge elimination system. Otherwise known as NPDES modification from waste innovation.
Can you speak up, please?
Can't hear
back here.
All right. Actually, no, I'm just going to take it. All right, we'll try that. Sorry about that. Let me just repeat what I said. All right. So welcome to Ohio EPA's meeting regarding receipt of an application for an NPDES modification from Wind Waste Innovations of Seneca County, also known as Sunny Mars Landfill. My name is Max Moore. I'm the Public Involvement Coordinator with Ohio EPA's Public Interest Center. I will be facilitating this evening's meeting. With me tonight are Mallory Smith, Ashley Ward, and Ryan Gearhart. They are all with Ohio EPA's Division of Surface Water. We do appreciate you taking the time tonight to attend the meeting, and we welcome your interest in this decision-making process for this permit application. We do look forward to a productive meeting and a respectful and informative discussion. But the process is quickly. So the process for tonight's meeting will have three parts. First, we're going to have an information session. This is when Mallory and Ashley will give a brief presentation, which you see behind me, on the permit application. Secondly, then we will open the floor for question and answers. I think as you came in, you're instructed to fill out one of these yellow cards. If you do have a question, so during the presentation, if you wish to ask a question and haven't yet filled out the card, I encourage you to do so, and then you can turn the card to me or one of our EPA representatives, and I'll talk about how we'll go through the Q&A when we get to that part. And then the third part, the last part, is where we hold the actual public hearing. This is the time for you to make comments on the record about the permit application. If you wish to get testimony during the hearing, you'll need to follow a blue card at the registration table again and turn it into me or one of the EPA representatives. I did want to make note, we do have a sign-in sheet also at the registration table. I do encourage you to add your name and contact information. This will ensure we have you on our mailing list to receive updates and mailings and status of not only this permit, but agency activities that concern this facility. So the purpose of the meeting tonight, we are going to discuss the application before us for this NPDES permit modification. We're going to cover what's known as anti-degradation rule, requirements and standards. And then lastly, during the public hearing, we're going to gather your comments regarding the request and potential impacts to waters of the state. Those comments will go on the public record, which will be considered by the director when she's making a decision about this permit. And then I do want to cover some topics that we will not be part of tonight's discussion are the operating licensure, the approval authority, the landfill expansion or approval process, and also air quality and drinking water concerns. If you have concerns about these topics, and I'm sure many of you do, you may reach out to me following the meeting, or you can submit those concerns during the public hearing as testimony on the public record, and those will be responded to. All right, now I will pass this over to Ashley to start the information session.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ashley Ward, and I'm an assistant chief with the Division of Surface Water in our central office. And the reason we're all here tonight is because Ohio EPA received an anti-degradation application to relocate two stormwater outfalls. Anti-degradation requires existing uses for water bodies to be maintained. And what that means is rivers and streams and lakes have different uses. For example, aquatic life live in streams, and so one of its beneficial uses is habitat for aquatic life. Or sometimes we recreate in the streams, and so another beneficial use would be for recreation. Anti-degradation is a federal requirement, and it requires that any permits that are issued do not result in a loss of use. The wind waste facility qualifies for an anti-degradation exclusion, and that is that any discharge of total suspended solids at or below 65 milligrams per liter. And what that means is the anti-degradation rule considers discharges below 65 milligrams per liter for total suspended solids to be de minimis, which means it's expected to have a negligible impact on the receiving stream. Now, the exclusion doesn't exempt a facility from any permitting requirements. It means that they don't have to submit an alternatives analysis and some economic and social justification that the rule would otherwise require. And again, the anti-degradation rule, at its heart, what it does is it prevents a loss of use in the receiving stream. And again, we have different beneficial uses from aquatic life use to recreation to industrial water supply to agricultural water supply. And I'm going to pass it to Mallory.
Specialist 2 out of the Bowling Green office. So tonight's application is for an MTDS modification for the proposed relocation of two existing stormwater sedimentation ponds, 001 and 003. These two ponds are proposed to be relocated on the property because the two existing locations would be located within the proposed limit of the solid waste placement expansion. This is the site map that was submitted with the application depicting the location of the existing versus the proposed relocated outfalls. Highlighted in green is outfall 001, and highlighted in yellow is outfall 003. The existing stormwater sedimentation ponds 001 and 003 would not be operated at the same time as the proposed relocated ponds. The two existing ponds will be replaced by these new ponds. The discharge would cease at these two existing ponds and would then discharge from the two relocated outfalls. This modification is just one of the many steps that wind waste needs to go through if this expansion is approved to move forward. The treated stormwater would be discharged to unnamed tributaries of both the East Branch of the Portage River and to Wolf Creek. The discharge would be comprised of stormwater runoff that does not contain leachate. The discharge will need to comply with both federal and state water quality standards. This facility falls underneath U.S. EPA's landfill effluent guidelines and standards, 40 CFR 445. The designated water body use for both the east branch of the Portage River and for Wolf Creek is designated warm water habitat, agricultural water supply, industrial water supply, and primary contact recreation. The proposed discharge into the east branch of the Portage River is located 2 3/4 miles upstream of the Fostoria public water intake. And Wolf Creek is located within the Sandusky River drainage basin. Outfall 001 will continue to discharge to Wolf Creek. Outfall 003 currently discharges to Wolf Creek and is proposed to discharge to the east branch of the Portage River. Both outfall 002 and 004 have no requested changes. The construction of these stormwater sedimentation ponds cannot begin until Wind Waste has applied for and is issued an approved permit to install. The ponds and outfalls cannot change unless Ohio EPA's Division of Materials and Waste Management moves forward with the landfill expansion request. Comments on the application will be accepted through 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on May 18, 2023. Ohio EPA will be considering all the comments received during the comment period and from tonight's public hearing while reviewing this permit application. Based on the review of all information, a recommendation will be made to issue or deny a draft permit. Ohio EPA will public notice a proposed draft action and an associated comment period. Then the director will take a final action and a response to comments would be made available. And I'm going to pass it back up to Max.
Thank you, Mallory. All right, thank you, ladies. Anthony, can we bring the house lights up? All right. So now we've heard the presentations, and now we're going to move into the question and answer portion. So please note that we will only be responding to questions pertaining to the subject presented tonight, which is the NPDES anti-dig permit. If you have other questions about the facility, you may ask them, but we may not be able to answer, or we'll encourage you to submit those on the record during the public hearing portion. And if you have a question, please fill out the yellow card and give it to me or one of my EPA colleagues. I will call on you to come forward and ask your question. You may ask one question and then a follow-up question. When everyone has had a chance to ask a question, we may move on to attendees that have additional questions as time permits. All right, we do want to answer as many questions as we can from as many people, so I do encourage you to limit the amount of time at your question. Please try to be brief and specific with your questions, so again, we can accommodate as many questions and answers as we can. All right, so I will now move into asking for people to come up. Great, thank you. And if you forgot your question and made your reminder, I can give you a card so you can remember your question. All right, so the first person we have with questions is Deb Tyson.
Talking about the streams or your drinking water? The stream. Right. So the discharge does qualify as de minimis, which means we're expecting a negligible impact on the receivable water.
Expected now, for sure.
And right, the discharge would not prohibit you from swimming.
Okay. And this I'm asking how much does this weigh in on what we're doing tonight? Does it actually go anywhere, or is it only going over there?
We listen to all the comments we hear, and we respond show up. So I have seen where permits become stronger and better because of public input. So it does matter that you're here.
Thank you. Next we have, looks like Sean. I'm unsure the last name. The question is about water. Okay, we'll try Susan.
My question has been answered. Thank you very much.
Obviously, you need to last. Next is Tim Dissel.
My question is, I'd like to know who is testing the water and what is it being tested for?
I don't know, they've been 2 months.
Are you talking about the discharge to the stream?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so a keystone to our MPDS program is that facilities do self-monitor, so they collect the samples. Ohio EPA has the ability to go and collect samples at any time, and we do that sometimes.
How often?
How does the public know what's in the water?
All of the data is available. You can request it anytime from us.
Okay.
I don't think she answered the part about what they test for.
No, I didn't.
Right, so all of the testing requirements are in the MPDS permit. For this expansion, the MPDS permit hasn't been drafted yet. This is a hearing on the application.
It'd be nice if the public knew what was going on.
So my name's Ryan Gerhardt. I'm the technical MPS permit lead for Northwest District Office in Bowling Green. Their actual MPS permit application discharge permit they have now does have our typical parameters we include for landfill stormwater discharges. So that copy is available out for the public, but that includes a lot of metals. They do toxicity testing, which is basically where they take organisms such as a water flea or a minnow and put it in their effluent and see how it affects them. So that is in their permit, and they do standard sampling such as cold suspended solids, pH, oil, and grease. So that permit's available, and we can post that hopefully so people can review what parameters they sample for.
How would that affect the water in the reservoirs and stuff like that that Fostoria get their drinking water from?
Right, so you're asking how would that impact the drinking water?
Yeah.
The MPDS permits are written to be protective of all water quality standards, including public water supply. And to add to what Ryan said, the permits are available online, so the existing MPDS permit is available, and if the director decides to move forward with the draft permit for the expansion, that draft permit would also be available online.
I drink the water, and I live less than a little over a mile away, not drinking it. We have to bring bottled water in, jugs of water, when we get by. I've had animals die because of drinking that water. So where in the world is that water any good? I turn my faucet on and that water stinks, and it never did. You guys are wrong. Seneca County told me in 3 years that I would have sewer in the city, water and sewer. But that was 25 years ago. I haven't seen none of that. And then you're trying to pawn off the fish water. This is a good thing. But you can't get enough shoved into the one creek. You gotta use 2 creeks to kill that much more.
So there were a couple comments in there, and I don't think everybody could probably probably hear you, and we probably need to stick to the yellow card. But a couple of things that you mentioned is that your drinking water, you can't drink your drinking water, which sounds like you should contact our division of
I
drinking.
did. They were there 2 months ago, and they were just here Monday, and I go, so what's the results of my water? Oh, we haven't got any yet. 2 months? And you don't know what I can drink? You sent me a letter that's full of just numbers and zeros, and well, I'm sorry, I'm not a brain addict, but my goodness, you could at least send me something I could read to have an idea. From Seneca County, you guys from Seneca County? No, of course not. Is there anybody from Seneca County here to represent them? Of course not. We're here to be stabbed in the back by our own townships and counties. That's wrong. You guys are wrong. You've made nothing but a mess. Fostoria is bad enough, but then to bring you guys in, whoever made that, did that, they were, wonder how lined their pockets got. You know, you guys have never done nothing for my water, and people die around me of different types of cancer. Who in the world has ever heard of and you can't. What are you guys going to do about that? You want to run water off? Why don't you take care of the people that have to drink your crappy water after you put it into the ground?
So I hear a lot of concern about your drinking water, and it sounds like well water. I will just reiterate that's a different division, our drinking and groundwater, and it sounds like you've already contacted them, and that is what I would recommend. This team up here, we're surface water, and so we can answer questions regarding the receiving stream and the waste or the stormwater being discharged to the receiving stream.
Sir, if you want to contact me, I can put you in touch.
Oh, we can talk. Yeah.
Moving on. Questions? The next question is from Mohammed Cool.
I'm just curious if any cluster surveys have been done, because in our little neighborhood there have been, my husband had cancer, I have some serious stuff going on. Our neighbor just came over and told us that she has stage 4 cancer. Another neighbor has some issues, and that's just our little corner. And I didn't, have any cluster studies been done?
They should do the whole
Not
thing.
that I'm aware of, but that's outside our area.
So who would I contact to ask them that?
Possibly the Department of Health. So, you know, we work for the Division of Surface Water, and we work in NPDS, and so we know about effluent and we know about streams, but that's outside of our area of expertise. But I hope that maybe the Department of Health might be a good place to contact them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is that all water?
Next question is from Brenda.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know if it's an equal or you have a certain percentage? If you pop down,
What are you doing with the water that's being pumped out of that pit that's in Fostoria?
considered surface water. Where does that surface water go?
Are you talking about the one, the very southern quarry? Yes. Okay, so all that water is routed through to their dishes that leads to their outfall 002. So that's a sedimentation basin, and everything gets treated through there. All the solids will settle out, and then that gets discharged.
So aren't you concerned about the blasting beside the mountain of trash that could affect the liner and affect the surface water being very contaminated, getting into the runoff?
So I'll just take a step back and reiterate that this is for the ANA review for the proposal to change, so we haven't made any decisions on the actual outfall permit. But when we evaluate landfills, most of the discharge we regulate are non-contaminated stormwater. So in the current permit that When Waste has, it is all non-contaminated stormwater. As part of these minor requirements I discussed earlier, we're verifying that it maintains and it continues to be non-contaminated stormwater. So they do have sampling requirements to verify that no leachate. That's where we sample for all the metals and things. Verify there's not a potential for leachate going through the stormwater ponds. So we are monitoring their ponds to verify that it is not being contaminated.
How do you, okay, so you just said that you check it periodically?
So it is a self-monitoring program. So through their NPS permit, they sample their discharges and we review that data. Yes, that's how it's checked.
So we have no way of proving that they're really honest with the numbers.
Yeah, you know, if people lie with the data that they're submitting to us, that's criminal activity, and the penalties for that are really steep. And there are ways to tease that out in the data. So we actually don't come across that happening very often. And again, we have the ability at any time to go and collect our own samples or do split samples.
Do you?
We often do, but for this particular facility, we have to.
How large is this facility? It's one of the largest in Ohio.
I got a question here.
That's ridiculous.
We're using the yellow cards and we can maybe start first. The next question is
I withdraw the
the next one's Harry Love.
I just have a question. Do you agree or disagree with the U.S. EPA that all landfills agree with that statement?
Can you say it again?
Can't hear you, Terry. Sorry. I was just asking if they agree or disagree with the U.S. EPA's statement that all landfills leak, even those with liners. It's also the landfill companies themselves verify this.
I'm not aware of where that's at.
You're unfamiliar with the USGS site, Norman landfill, that the EPA made their conclusion from?
I'm not aware of that document, no.
It's not a document, it's a study site.
Okay, I'm not aware of that study site, no.
So if landfills leak and these toxins even came up from the groundwater into the streams and outflows, how can you be doing your job if you're approving this? And they show that it gets worse over time along the landfills around the more, animals that dig through. If they dig through on the top of the hill in a couple places, it's going to leak onto the grass, it's going to get into the outflows. So do you think you're doing your job?
So within the business service water, if we would have to have a complaint, like if a leachate outbreak or seepage, we would follow up on that complaint and verify that it was corrected or if that water quality standards that they discharge water to the state.
I'm just saying, since the US EPA says this, you didn't get the memo.
I'll have to look into that.
No. Yes.
I have a follow-up question to a previous question. How often?
Can you step to the microphone so we can hear? Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. How often is Sunny Farms required to sample and test their discharge? And over the last 12 months, I think you've already answered this, but how often has the EPA done a follow-up test or an independent test of that same discharge?
the sampling requirements, they have different measuring frequencies depending on the parameter. Some things are twice a month, other things are once a quarter. And a couple things are once a year. So there are different parameter sampling frequencies based on the given parameter. As far as us completely sampling, no, we have not done any sampling.
Is there any chance that you're going to start sampling?
I'll speak that a little bit. We're pretty limited on resources on where we sample. It's mainly major MPDS facilities over a million gallons per day where we prioritize our sampling. So I can't speak to that directly.
Okay, and lastly, where can we write, or who can we write to request test results from the EPA?
You can send any of us a request for that.
Okay. And do you have an address or anything on the screen afterwards?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
And also to answer your question, we could consider a sampling facility.
Okay. It would be something that we would all be.
Thank you. And again, if questions you've asked tonight, you're not sure what answer, you can always contact me. Business cards are in the back. Contact information. You can also submit them on the public record, and then they will be actually responded to in the response to comments document, which is issued in the record. Two ways. Do we have other questions? From the floor? We don't have any more cards, but if you have a question, if you want to come forward and to the microphone.
My name is Elliot Schaefer. Just a quick question. With the earthquake that happened recently near the landfill, is there any concern with the amount of weight that's actually in the landfill and the shipping? Because my concern is the weight that's sitting on that layer of sediment or rock is too much and it could break. And then the watershed would be affected.
That'd be more of a question for division. Interior Waste Management deals with designs of landfills. Since we mainly deal with the discharge, I can't have any input on the stability or things like that.
Can you put that up on the screen so we can all have it?
Did you hear? Did I hear that you guys just ask people?
No, so today's hearing is on the submittal of the anti-degradation application for the NPDES permit. So the three of us sitting up here, we're experts on wastewater and streams, but we're not experts on things like landfill stability or cancer clusters or things like that. We know something that. Well, this is a hearing on the NPDES application, so that's why we're here.
How do we get a meeting on these other matters?
So the expansion permit is in draft form, is being reviewed right now. When that permit is issued in its draft form, there'll be an additional comment period for that, and you'll be able to request a hearing for that permit. So
We have to request it or we'll get one?
you'll have to request it.
Where do we go?
You'll see that when the permit comes out, and if you make sure you're on the sign-in sheet, you'll get information about the permit. Yes, sir.
I don't think I can get up there to talk. My question. Give me my mic.
Wait a minute. We're going to bring a mic to you.
Thank you.
Are the railroad cars that contain the waste that brought in from out of state required to be covered?
Can you repeat that?
He wanted to know about the covered rail cars. Do they need to be covered? He wanted to know. But it's not really relevant.
There was just a picture in the Fostoria paper of a derailed car, and it did not appear there was any cover, on the car. But years ago, I used to go to Bascom, to the substation, and watch trains. And here came a train down through there. It looked like a bunch of bed sheets just flopping in the breeze. What the hell is that? And it was that plastic covers off of his cars bound for the landfill. I wonder how many tons of that stuff between this border of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Fostoria. I wonder how many tons of that stuff you could pick up along the railroad. And then they get rained on, and they pull them into Fostoria, and they sit there with water, and they stink to high heaven, and the people have no recourse. What? Does the county health department, are they notified when there's a shipment is coming through there, or what? If not, they should be.
They don't put a cover over everything. I got a picture of that. It's all uncovered. Right here. I took a picture.
Hey, the derailment that happened in East Palestine, the president is making it going to be a law. So I don't know.
Derailment happens everywhere.
It's federal.
I know that's
Railroad.
So I heard concerns about the rail cars coming in and trash going as they're coming in and then them sitting and then there being an odor associated with that. That is, and that's something that's outside.
He also said that it rains on them and then it collects inside of the train car and then it leaks all over the ground. That's also what he said. So that's another concern of his, is why
They sit right next to the waterways,
in the community,
all of them.
along the roadside, and they fill with water, leach out into the ground, into the creek.
Which will then be your surface water.
Who's in charge? Who pays the fine? Who do you complain to?
We need a sample.
Hello?
That's right.
So,
No, they don't.
right. If the material is getting exposed to stormwater and it could potentially be contaminated stormwater, and they should be taking steps. So as part of the, so this is, once again, we'll take a step back. This is a proposal for the new stormwater pond and that application in front of us. But under the current permit, they do have stormwater controls in there and what's called best management practices. So they're supposed to try to minimize that exposure to any waste product and the potential for contamination. So.
So we already have the two reception ponds.
Can you speak up?
You already have 2 ponds, correct? Now they're going to build 2, the proposed is for 2 more ponds in addition to the 2 they have? Or they're going to close up or not discharge off the 2?
Correct. What the drawings you showed earlier.
I saw the green
The proposal, yeah, they're not going to discharge out the existing ponds once the new ponds are built. So the proposal is to put in 2 new discharges with 2 new ponds and eliminate the 2 existing ponds.
Do they fill in those existing ponds then, or are they going to still retain water to hold it?
I believe, from my understanding, is where the expansion's going is where the ponds will be, so they will be filled in, is my understanding.
Okay, so I shouldn't expect any additional flooding in my backyard because we'll creek runs through it.
So the 2 new ponds that they're creating will pretty much give them one more step into the approval of the expansion because they need bigger ponds, correct? They need bigger ponds to hold more so that they can expand larger, right?
So we can have more trash from out of state.
Yeah, so this is pretty much one more step into the stage of expansion for this to get approved for them to expand more. Because I feel like the 2 existing ponds are too small. They can't expand if they're still tiny little ponds, correct? So they need bigger ones to hold more.
So, as part of the, I won't speak too much to this because it's not our program, but the Division of Materials Waste Management, as part of their approval or review of expansion, would have certain requirements for stormwater control. They think that meet certain design storms and things. So they potentially would have to expand pond size to meet those requirements. So.
Yep, that's what I thought.
We as a community, we feel we're
mic?
probably not going to get rid of the landfill, but we would appreciate if the EPA would have some boots on site, and then we'd feel better. Let those jokers test their own. Come on. There's enough money gone to you. We should, that's a large landfill. It's not one of the smallest ones in Ohio.
No, and we do conduct inspections.
Not testing.
You've been on site?
Yes. Goes on, right, I've been on site.
But never tested.
But not testing?
No, they did not. Never tested.
A good start would be to limit the amount of crap they can bring in from out of state. That would be the best thing you could ever have. They're concerned about the money. I don't think they've got any shame or conscience. They're not going to do that. We got to do it for them. So right there, you people from the EPA, whatever, deny the permits, cut down, jack up the pay the money that the out-of-state people pay to ship it over here. Sooner or later, they're going to get the word and they're going to cut down. And then we don't have this problem.
Awesome.
I do want to keep the floor open for questions. Yes, sir.
When you first opened up, I just wanted to clarify a couple things that you said. You said that Wind Waste is asking for an exclusion. What is the exclusion?
So it's an exclusion from submitting an alternatives analysis and some social and economic justification information. And that's
is that a big step in the process?
Is that a what?
Big step or a big deal for them to do that? Is that why they're asking for an exclusion? Because exclusion to me means like they're not doing something, they want an exclusion to get out of doing something that they're supposed to be doing.
Right, it's additional information that they would otherwise need to submit. It's fairly common for facilities to request this exclusion. They almost always do if they need it.
Facilities that are in compliance, probably.
It's not tied to compliance. It's tied to if the discharge is de minimis, not a big impact to the receiving stream. So for this situation, the main pollutant is total suspended solids, and the rule defines de minimis as being under 65 milligrams per liter of total suspended solids, and the discharge is under that threshold. And so I also do want to clarify that it's not an exclusion from any compliance, any permits that they would otherwise need to get. It only excludes them from submitting some additional information as part of the anti-degradation application.
So would they, why would they have 2 ponds instead of just 1? Are they measured separately?
They're diluting it.
And is it a cumulative total at the end, or is it per pond, what you're saying? So if they're 65 per pond, and then what if they're, following under the guidelines instead of like 160 for both, and or whatever it is, and then you're getting judged, because that's what happened in 2014 when they did not issue the air permit, because they were considering 2 different sources. If they would have combined the sources together at that time, then they would have had that PSD permit way back in 2014, and we wouldn't even be here talking about this. So the ball was dropped on the EPA, and that's for sure known. So is this the same thing?
No, it's not the same thing. So the exclusion is tied to a concentration of 65 milligrams per liter. If both ponds are at 65 milligrams per liter and you combined them, the concentration would still be 65 milligrams per liter.
Let's put them all in one time.
So I think in their permit they talk about mass and production. This is a concentration-based exclusion, so as long as the ponds are maintained, each individual pond under the 65 milligrams per liter, so there's no additive or anything that's evaluated as part of that. Both ponds have to be under that concentration.
Why would it be 1 constant?
So both of the 2 ponds, they're going to be going in different waterways. One will be going to Wolf Creek, one goes to East Bridge Trigger.
There would be more concentration if it were sent to one, though, right?
Discharge, right? What are those expectations?
In one area, they're spreading the concentration.
Have you tested what's inside of the cell to determine what's expected on the other end after treatment?
So this is from the application itself. They indicate that it's not giving stormwater, it's going to be discharged, and the main constituent is going to be suspended solids. But like I said before, in the current permit, we do monitor a lot of other parameters for what they discharge, evaluate to make sure there's nothing else coming out from that outfall.
But you don't.
Or outfalls.
Okay. So I guess you did reference the best management practices for landfills. I guess when you say that, that process hasn't been followed for 20 years, right? So how can we expect, you guys to follow that standard when it hasn't been followed in so long? And when the past behavior violations dictate or help make a decision moving forward with this expansion, such as the illegal sump pump that was, I believe, 2018 or 19, they were legally discharging into the creek, and we had to inform the EPA, and they went out and checked, and they found a road violation and all that stuff. So you talk about self-regulating and testing, that stuff was done. You had no idea, and it had been going on for so long with nobody out there. We can't trust that they're going to do the right thing because of their past behavior. I mean, they're still in the consent order, which they've been in the consent order for the last 20 years. They've never been in compliance with the state law. And you're putting the cart before the horse because you're trying to apply for this permit and give them this permit to expand, and you don't even know if the expansion is going to happen. So here's our tax dollars sitting here, going to waste, and you're in hopes of, it just seems a little backwards. It seems like you already have a decision made up, and this is just a formality. It doesn't seem fair to us. All the things that I described in the past is evidence that you failed to do your job. Maybe you weren't there at that time, but your agency did. And I know that, this landfill had the most hydrogen sulfide problems out of all landfills that your agency office monitors in the state of Ohio. And you want to move forward with this. It just doesn't make sense.
So those comments would actually be good for public records.
That'd be great. Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
We have other questions from the floor related to the NPDES permit. Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I'm heard. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, I don't get what you guys are
Okay, well, first of all, sir, do you have a question?
I do have a question.
Okay.
When are you going to fix my well water? That's a good question, isn't it? There's a lot of people, their water is dangerous. Lady across the street died of bone marrow cancer. I watched that poor lady sit there and suffer. They went to California trying to get it. How rare is bone marrow cancer? California treats her, and she still got it. And you guys are standing up here and sitting up here thinking that we're all idiots. Not all of us. Some of us got an idea what's going on, and it's not right. You guys are not being right about this. We don't want you anymore. We've had enough of this sewer. We're turning over, and when the gentleman over here said it wasn't covered, you want to see it wasn't? I got a picture it wasn't covered. So don't tell us that you cover everything. And then what about the stuff that runs off through when it rains? It runs through the railroad cars and runs right down into that ditch. Where's that going? Did anybody monitor that? Well, I'll drop on down. Okay.
So all that water that comes off the storm, off the rail cars when it's on the property, that gets routed to their ditches, which then goes to their sedimentation pond 002.
When it's on the property.
Runs along the tracks.
Those ditches line? Yeah. Is there any other county people here that some of us are forced to use that kind of water to put there. This water, makes me so mad. The animals I've lost because they drank that water, not knowing that really. some of us care for other things than just making money. We all like to have a pocket full of it. But try to pass this on us. You think we're all fools? Not all of us. We weren't all born yesterday or the day before.
We want to pass that.
All right, any more questions? Oh, yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment if I could.
So, if you want to make a comment, I suggest you get on the public record during the hearing portion.
Okay. Are any of you familiar with the Blue Hole in Fostoria, Ohio? It's a water source that was discovered about 1870 and flows year-round, thousands of gallons a minute, at a constant temperature of 55 degrees year-round. July, January, the state has a fish hatchery there. They still do not know the source of that water, and yet the EPA says it's okay to go to Vickery, Ohio, which is about 15 or 18 miles away, drill down into whatever sandstone layer of those, and inject hazardous strychnine, water, whatever, and that's safe as it can be. And I don't believe a word of it, and I want you people find out, where does that water come from? Thank you.
If there are no more questions on the permit itself, go ahead and read the public hearing portion. So this is when we will collect our comments on the record to be considered with the permit. So let me read the instructions there for that. Okay, so we now move into the public hearing portion of the meeting. And again, so the public portion is, so if you do wish to testify on the record, I ask you to fill out a blue card. I have a stack of blue cards here. I will call them in the order that we receive them. If you still wish to provide testimony, you can grab a card from the back table, fill it out, and give it to me. And I will call the order. So I will go ahead and read a short speech. It's not short, it's kind of long. To start the public hearing, and again, this will all be recorded by the court reporter, so you'll see her chatting away. So, are you ready? All right. Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, public hearing, May 11, 2023. My name is Max Moore. I'm a public involvement coordinator for Ohio EPA and will be facilitating tonight's public hearing. The purpose of the hearing today is to obtain comments from any interested persons regarding an application for modification of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System and PDES permit, number 2IN00136, submitted by Wind Waste Innovations of Seneca County, LLC, formerly Sunny Farms Landfill, LLC. If approved, the permit modification will allow for relocation of 2 stormwater sediment ponds on the facility's property. In their new location, the ponds would discharge treated stormwater runoff to unnamed tributaries of the Portage River and Wolf Creek. Approval of this permit would not authorize expansion of the landfill. Ohio EPA published a public notice to announce the hearing and public comment period regarding the request in newspapers in the area. This notice was also issued in Ohio EPA's weekly review. A publication that lists all agency activities and actions taking place in the state of Ohio. All interested persons are entitled to attend this hearing and be represented and to submit comments concerning the permit application during the comment period. To be included in the official record, comments must be received by Ohio EPA by the close of business May 18, 2023, so a week from today. These comments may be presented orally today. You can mail them to Ohio EPA Division of Surface Water, Detention Permits Processing, PO Box 1049. So I'll put the address here. So those can be submitted by U.S. mail to Ohio EPA Division of Surface Water, Detention Permits Processing, PO Box 1049, Columbus, Ohio 43216. You can also email them to epa.dswcomments@epa.ohio.gov. Again, please include the permit number to IN00136 in all correspondence. Written comments submitted by May 18th will receive the same consideration as testimony submitted tonight. Written statements submitted after May 18th may be considered as time and circumstances permit, but will not be part of the official record for the permit application. Questions and comments made at the public hearing will be responded to in a document known as a response to comments. The director, after taking into consideration the recommendations of program staff and comments presented by the public, may issue or deny the permit. The director's decision on with the aforementioned response to comments document are available to the public upon request. Final actions are appealable to the Environmental Review Appeals Commission. This is a board separate from Ohio EPA and reviews cases in accordance with Ohio's environmental laws and rules. If you wish to present testimony and have not already completed the blue card, please do so now, and you can turn it to me. Again, call on the order of cards in which we received. When called, please come to the microphone. I'll ask you to state and spell your name so we have it accurately recorded for the record. If you have any exhibits, this includes written speeches, maps, photographs, or any other physical evidence referred to in your testimony, I ask you to submit these to me tonight so they can be included as part of the official record. Those testifying may only speak once and speak for 5 minutes, so I ask you to use your time wisely and that you are respectful of others also providing the testimony. Ohio EPA's public hearings afford citizens an opportunity to provide input. However, there is no cross-examination of the speakers or Ohio EPA representatives in public hearings, nor can we answer questions posed at this point. A court reporter is here to make a recording of tonight's proceedings. I or an agency representative may ask clarifying questions of speakers to ensure that we record your testimony as complete and accurately as possible. All right, so we will now start the public testimony period. I will start calling again in order of names. Please come forward, state your name and spell the reporter, and then we'll have 5 minutes to make your testimony. So the first we have is Lou Watkins. Deja vu.
Actually, Lewis, L-O-U-I-S, Watkins, W-A-T-K-I-N-S. And I understand you
Talk into the mic.
Can't hear
Yeah, you're going to step back the mic. There you go.
I don't understand where you guys are coming from. This is our community. We're tired of you guys. We want you out. We want some farm. Wherever you guys are hiding at, I seen you all wandering around, some of you. We want you guys out. We want our town back. You ruined it. You ruined enough. Haven't you? Really, you guys just blow my mind that you can sit there so calmly and go home to your nice, comfortable water supply, which we don't have anybody that doesn't have city water. There's quite a few. And I do have pictures I'd like you to see. And what about the rat and mice problem that comes off these radar cars? There's plenty of those. There's cars parked behind mobile home or that's probably not 50 feet away from the back of their house. Can you imagine living there? The stench that was to me. Of course, most people that doesn't matter because their pockets are lined real well, but the people who live in those trailer parks, their pockets aren't. And the water, you want to just make a bigger place to contaminate, having some ponds contaminated enough. Didn't they just have a car derail? May have been their fault, probably a faulty track, but I know for a fact there's no top on that. And if you'd like to see the picture done tomorrow, I'm glad to show you. Should have sent it to Toledo 11 News or something. Maybe they'd have put them on right along with their little skit that they did. But you guys, we don't want you. I don't think there's anybody out here that wants that anymore. Is there? Are we not tired of the dump?
Yeah, we're tired.
All right, sorry, if we could let him have his moment of testimony. Thank you.
We don't want that you guys not contaminated anymore. You can give us all the numbers, but you know, in 2 months, you think we have results of a test that you came to twice in 2 days, because you missed something else. I don't believe that. I believe you guys know what the answers are, and the water's not drinkable. And so, we don't drink it, but we bathe it. So we might as well drink it. I mean, the Seneca County stepped up, oh yeah, I want to buy that house 25 years ago, in 3 years you'll have the water and sewer. Well, amazing. It's been 25 years, and which 3 of those years are they going to be? I mean, I'm tired. I've talked to the people from the dump. They don't care. They go home at night. They don't have to live here in Fostoria. We do. We've had enough. We don't want anymore. We don't want to use any more. One brick's enough to live. Why ruin them all? What are they going to do when they close those holes? Is that another dump area? That big hole, I see all that nice big hole there. I bet they're just waiting to dump it there. And their liners, has anybody really seen what their liners are? They told us that they're thinner than a trash bag, and that's what was up. How safe is that? That'll hold that trash, right? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Dwayne, is it Lanu? State your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Lanu. It's D-U-A-N-E. Last name's L-A-N-O-U-E. I'm with Civil Environmental Consultants, and we prepared an NPDES application. So I just want to kind of restate what you talked about on the application. That is requesting a modification of 2 relocated sedimentation ponds as part of the landfill expansion. The application is in compliance with the regulatory requirements. It does not request any exemptions or increases in the concentrations of permanent parameters discharged at the site. Although the application requires an anti-degradation addendum, the site qualifies for an exclusion to the anti-degradation requirements due to the low total sustained solids concentration levels of the discharge. The NPDES permit application is for surface water that runs in disturbed areas and does not come in contact with waste. City Farms Landfill manages the surface water through a series of benches, letdowns, permanent channels, and sedimentation ponds designed in accordance with the solid waste regulations. The landfill expansion will incorporate more surface water runoff to be managed. However, the relocated sedimentation ponds are larger than the current set ponds to accommodate the increased surface water runoff. The sedimentation ponds allow for settlement of the solid particles prior to the discharge from water.
Do you wish to submit that as written testimony? Thank you, sir. Next we have Tom, is it COVID?
Tom Covret, C-O-V as in Victor, R-E-T-T, certified professional geologist with civil and environmental consultants. It is important to remember that surface water at the site is monitored by a permit issued under the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES, as required by the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. Stormwater that does not contact waste is routed to sedimentation ponds where solid particles settle prior to leaving the site through permitted outfalls. The discharged surface water is required to be tested twice each month for parameters that have regulated discharge limits. The samples are collected by a third-party independent company and analyzed by a third-party certified laboratory. The surface water data are submitted to Ohio EPA each month by another independent company. It is important to note that the ongoing surface water monitoring program is in compliance with the NPDES permit and regulations. and that there are no violations or exceedances of either the permit or the regulations. It is also important to note that the surface water at the site is hydraulically isolated from groundwater, and that surface water is not impacting the quality of groundwater. The proposed modifications to the sedimentation ponds are in compliance with the regulations. The site will be required to continue to complete the surface water monitoring program under a new NIPDES permit. It will not be allowed to discharge surface water that exceeds a discharge limit.
Thank you. Next we have Jeremy Hirely.
Jeremy Hirely, Jeremyheyerly. As I just said, my name is Jeremy Hirely. I'm a professional engineer, licensed in the state of Ohio and employed by civil and environmental consultants. For over 25 years, I've been involved in the permitting, design, and construction of municipal solid waste landfills, restricted waste landfills for industry-specific products, such as spent foundry sand, kiln dust, or full combustion residuals. I've also been involved with the cleanup of historic sites, known as dumps, that existed prior to the development of EPA regulations and the specialized products we use in modern sanitary landfill construction. The large majority of Americans enjoy the luxury of having their waste picked up at their residence. We don't need to dig holes in the backyard to bury it. We don't need to burn it or otherwise dump it. Our waste is taken away in a truck, and in most cases, all or some of it is disposed of in a sanitary landfill. The government and the waste industry have done much to promote recycling and the removal of select materials from the landfill, but part of the waste we all generate will likely need to be placed within a sanitary landfill for disposal. It is in the public's interest to construct, operate, and maintain sanitary landfills, and when necessary, to expand existing locations. The federal and state rules set in place for landfills and related infrastructure, as well as the oversight provided by the various agencies, are protective of human health and the environment. As we've already heard, several programs are in place to monitor groundwater, surface water, and air quality, and to confirm compliance with the rules set in place by the Ohio EPA. Besides these compliance programs, a team of engineers such as myself works daily to plan, construct, operate, and maintain both the landfill as a whole and the individual systems necessary to properly and safely operate the landfill. Where possible, we also work to maximize other benefits, such as wetland conservation and gas to energy development, as well as implement best available technologies. While these facilities, the engineering behind them, and the regulatory oversight are not generally appreciated, they are vital to maintaining human health and the environment.
Thank you. Next we have Brian Giesing.
I'm Brian Easy, Vice President of Landfills for Food Waste Innovations in Sunny Farms. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I've been involved here since March of 2019 when I started as our Vice President of Engineering and Environmental Compliance. I'm part of the team that's overseen a tremendous amount of positive change at Sunny Farms over the last 4 years. I'm here with many of our 80 hard-working frontline waste employees whose daily job is the safe disposal of society's waste. We're here, Mr. Watkins, dressed in red, right here. We are proud of where we work, and we are proud of the work we do every day, providing an essential service while protecting the communities we serve and the environment. Also joining me today are many of our valued vendors who also help us provide exemplary environmental services. First, I'd like to address a frequent concern that we hear. Some residents and stakeholders are concerned that the last 4 years of 100% compliance and positive environmental performance is temporary. This is not the case. Wind Waste Innovations is committed to Ohio. We recently purchased a transfer station and several collection companies in central Ohio to serve as a platform for continued growth in the state. We now have over 200 employees in Ohio. We are installing over $100 million in emissions control equipment at our Ohio landfills, including the $54 million Sunny Farms hydrogen sulfide treatment system, to address legacy issues from previous owners. This level of commitment serves to demonstrate that we are here to stay and there will be no backslide. Under our Win Waste Innovations values, we are fully committed to continuing environmental investments and operational improvements at all of our facilities to ensure that we are operated in a safe and responsible manner while contributing to the growth and success of the communities we operate in. Next, as you have heard, there are no health risks associated with the operation of the landfill. Third-party environmental professionals conduct extensive environmental monitoring of a comprehensive groundwater and surface water network, testing water under the watchful eye of the Ohio EPA. In addition to that, the county started back in 2019 an extensive program that includes sampling of water and soil in the stormwater ditches and all the ponds on site. The ponds that are next to the rail and loading building, that are next to where all the rail cars are, all of that water and soil is sampled. The county selects their own lab and sends that. They collect the samples and send in those samples to their own lab of their choosing. The results from the lab that we select, as we split the samples, match the results from the county. And they document that there is no soil contamination and that the pond water meets water quality drinking standards, primary water quality drinking standards. This is a fact and confirms that this landfill is well run and protective of the environment. Through regulations, testing, and data, it is well documented that the operations at the landfill do not negatively impact the air, water, or health of the surrounding communities. This fact is also confirmed by the Ohio EPA in their response to public concerns about health risks. Finally, as noted in the Ohio EPA presentation, this hearing is simply about the relocation of 2 ponds. It does not allow the expansion of the landfill. There has already been extensive public information about the expansion, and there will be continued opportunities for the public to participate in a multi-step process for comments on the expansion. To sum up, we're committed to continually improving as we have over the last 4 years. The site continues to get better every day. It's an exemplary facility. The operation of the facility complies with applicable laws and poses no risk to human health and the environment, and this is a straightforward permit, separate from the future hearing on the applications for the expansion. We appreciate the time. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of our employees that operate the facility every day. We look forward to providing more information about what we do and how we do it, and our dedication to the local community and all of Ohio. Thank you.
Next we have Wayne Harriman.
Would you like a couple gallons of my water to drink?
My name is Wayne Harriman, W-A-Y-N-E, H-A-R-R-I-M-A-N. I'm the Product Support General Manager based out of Columbus, Ohio. Win Waste Innovations represents roughly $12 million in annual revenue to Columbus Equipment. We have roughly 260 employees in Ohio. The revenue ranges from new machine sales, rental, and product support, creating employment not only here in the local market, but from several of our locations across Ohio. Example, we'll send technicians or equipment from not only Perrysburg, but if needed, as far away as Cadiz and Columbus, Ohio, to support Sunny Farms in ensuring they meet their equipment uptime needs to meet site compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Bill, is it Frankfurt?
Good evening.
Sir, if you could spell it.
Yeah. I'm Bill Frankert, F-R-A-N-K-A-R-T, Seneca County Commissioner. On behalf of my colleagues, Commissioner Anthony Paradiso and Commissioner Tyler Schuff, I'm here to deliver a shortened version of the written testimony submitted by the commissioners regarding this issue. We want to express our strong opposition to the permit application submitted by Win Waste Innovations to modify the wastewater discharge permit for Sunny Farms landfill. Our opposition is rooted in our concerns about water quality in the county streams and our opposition to any expansion or growth at the landfill. If approved, this permit application would allow Sunny Farms landfill to take another step towards its proposed expansion. which we have already publicly opposed with the resolution approved on June 23rd, 2022. We have attached this resolution to our written testimony. We recognize the importance of properly managing solid waste facilities to protect the environment and public health, and we are aware of Sunny Farms landfill track record on non-compliance with state and federal rules and regulations. Additionally, deficiencies in the landfill's drainage system observed in Ohio EPA's last two MPDES inspections threaten to discharge contaminated runoff into the state's waters. The issue of water quality holds the utmost significance in our state and to our commissioners. Just an example of this is the H2O Ohio program launched in 2019, which works to take on the longstanding water concerns that have plagued our state. We align ourselves with the governor's leadership and the state's vision to safeguard the purity of the water in our community. Therefore, we urge the EPA to deny the permit application submitted by Wind Waste Innovations to modify the wastewater discharge permit for Sunny Farms landfill. We also call on the EPA, the Seneca County General Health District, and other regulatory authorities to ensure that the landfill complies with all state and federal rules and regulations. In addition to our opposition, we have had several concerns brought to our attention by residents who live near the facility. We do not have the expertise to answer these questions, so we are requesting the Ohio EPA officials research and provide answers. Those questions are included in the written testimony we are submitting. We thank you for considering our testimony and our concerns regarding Sunny Farms landfill. We commit to working closely and with the necessary agencies, including the Ohio EPA, to ensure that citizens are protected from harmful emissions and other potential hazards created by the landfill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next is Bob Portage. Portage.
I would love to stand up there in front of all of you, but last Wednesday I got total knee replacement, so I'm not moving too good, and standing is not one of the best things. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, and I want to thank the Wind Waste employees, because I see there was a major donation made to Hopewell Schools. They're a major contributor to the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, and other organizations. And then just the last couple Saturdays, there was a free waste haul-in from anybody from the city of Fostoria. Thank you. That being said, it's interesting, I requested the drinking water source assessment for the city of Fostoria a little over a year ago, and found out that in 2019, when that drinking water source assessment was done by the EPA, signed off on by Mr. Kruger. Does he still work for you guys? For the EPA? Richard Kroger, K-R-O-E-G-E-R?
Yes.
Okay, good. He, in 2019, after revising the original January 2003 drinking water source assessment from Fostoria, never listed the landfill. The actual statement was, also the inventory is limited to what the Ohio EPA staff were able to observe on the day of the site visit. So they did all that. And then they list things like cropland, pastures, there's a golf course, there's oil wells, there's septic systems could be bad, there's underground injection wells, it says 3. I don't know where those are at, but that doesn't sound good. But finally, in January of 2023, after I contacted Amy Kyle, who's the state safe drinking water chief, they found the landfill. So I don't know if any of you have been working there before January, the EPA didn't know you were there, according to their report. And Brian, you've been there since March of 19. In June of 19, they did a report, they couldn't find you. Now all you got to do is go south of town. It's there. So here's my biggest concern. Is that if the EPA can't find it, don't list it, it ain't got just as much ink on the report as a hog farm that sits by one of the tributaries south of the landfill, then how in the world can we expect the employees and Wind Waste itself to self-police when the EPA wasn't even there for 2 years during COVID because you couldn't ride in the car together. You couldn't drive separate, you couldn't ride in the car together. And that was a statement given to the county health department committee on the landfill. The second thing is that this just isn't a permit renewal. I was fortunate enough to be able to stop at the Dairy Queen, and they gave me this free cup. This is how much dirt, I'm just going to call it dirt. You have some special word for it that comes out and into the ditch. Dirt comes out. Now, this is what you're permitted to put in. You're asking to add this much to it. 45%. From 45, whatever the gauge is, up to 65. So it's not just a renewal. You're asking to put more dirt into our streams, that the dirt goes up the portage. City of Fostoria pumps their water out of it, puts it in the reservoir, and then they have to make it water that's drinkable. I rarely watch TV, but I thought that the big guy said, we're going to build back better. Whoever did this assessment, all of your folks from your office in Columbus that you hire to do this kind of thing, it sure would be nice if they could figure out how to maintain the same standard that you're held to right now and not have to increase the effluent discharge that's going into the Wolf Creek, eventually to the lake, Portage, eventually to the lake, but first we get our drinking water from it. It would just be a great thing. There's a big difference there. This is 100% of what's now, and you want to add 45% more. Isn't there anybody here smart enough to figure out how to get that settled out on your property and let you do something with it before it goes into the streams? So, now that you found the landfill in January of 2023, according to the city's water assessment report, it would be nice if you went there more often and tested. Not count on them to do it. They will do it. When they're supposed to, how they're supposed to, and they'll turn the results in, and I can guarantee you there'll never be a bad thing happen out there. So, thank you for your time. It's not just a permit renewal, it's an expansion. We don't want a landfill expansion. We don't want this permit to be expanded. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Deb Tyson.
I'm very concerned because, as it's been brought out here today, EPA and the landfill say they're doing their best, which maybe they have with what they have, but it's not good enough. And my concern is I have to live here like everybody else does. I don't have a wish to die, and I don't want to bathe in the water. Okay, you don't want to talk about drinking water, but I do know in a place where my daughter was, that they told her if you couldn't drink the water, don't bathe in it. And that was issued by a state official. So, I know a little bit, I'm not schooled on everything, but I've had a personal involvement to that extent. And my thing is, I'm very concerned that nobody wants to protect us that's in an official capacity. So I'd like to be on record for that. Thank you.
Clay Wolf, CLAY, WOLPH. I'm the Seneca County Board of Health President. I've not been around to say a whole lot, but the NPDES permit modification should be subject to Ohio EPA's anti-degradation review under Ohio Administrative Code 3745-1-05. Sunny Farms has not, to our knowledge, submitted any technical evidence that the new sedimentation basins will discharge less than 10 milligrams per liter of oil and grease and less than 65 milligrams per liter in total suspended solids, as is necessary to qualify the exemption from anti-degradation review that Sunny Farms seeks to invoke. Not allowed to say much, but I know these ponds are going to be moved closer to our water system or a water supply, which is 2 miles downstream. With last month, I think we had 1.8 million gallons of leachate, and a lot of people have come and told us about breakthroughs, which we just wish I could say more.
Ben Nutter, E-N-N-U-T-T-E-R. I just want to inform the Ohio EPA about our 80 employees that we have working out there every day, not including contractors, etc. And they come to work every day protecting the environment because that is our job and that is what we do. And they're very good at what they do, and we're proud of them, and we're proud that they came out here tonight. And of course, this permit application is important to us to be able to continue our operations well into the future so that we can protect the livelihoods of our 80 employees and additional future jobs and continue to protect the environment and service the local community and programs. So, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Love, T-E-R-R-Y-L-O-V-E. They make it all sound very nice, which it would be if everything in the world that was built by man was perfect. Unfortunately, nothing built by man stays forever. It all fails at some time. And I did a little deep dive into the construction of the liner, how it's done by the landfills. Generally, they take a four-wheel drive, they have strips of liner a certain length, and then they grade like they're doing in the southern pit right now, and then they run the liner down, and then they wedge weld those together. But while I was watching, I was a little disturbed because I had some expertise in this. In college, I was working for a handful of plastics in Finley in a prototype program for welding. In the videos, they showed the four-wheeler pulling it down. Meanwhile, dust was being thrown on the liner, which, if you know anything about plastic welding, if you touch it with your hand, you have to clean it. If there's dirt on it, you have to clean it. Otherwise, it does not make a clean weld. There can be rivulets that go through and leak, and that brings me back to the statement I made earlier. You US EPA has concluded that all landfills eventually will leak into the environment. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, 1988. Thus, the fate and transport of leachate in the environment, both from old and more modern landfills, is a potentially serious environmental problem. The pipes can crack, fill with sediment, and no longer distribute through the outflows. They can fill up, so the water's got to go somewhere. And everybody here has picked up a leaky garbage bag from out of their trash can, and it leaks. If there's a hole in it, it's going to get out. It's going to get into the streams. It's going to get into the groundwater. I know we're not talking about that, but eventually it gets to the lake. And your duty does not end when the landfill closes. Your responsibility exists far beyond that. So it will eventually leak. If it leaks into the water, then it is degrading the water, and you've just violated the whole purpose of your agency. That's all I'd like to say.
I've been a contractor for the landfill. Sorry, Jack Bogner, Jackbeugner. I've done work there for roughly 18 years. And in that time, I've seen pretty much all the owners of the landfill, save maybe the first. And I will say that in my time there, I've seen more change in the last 4 years to do things the right way and make it safer for everybody around there, working and living around there, since when waste has taken over. And their effort to make it a place to live around and work at has been far greater than all the previous owners put together. Yeah. Thank you.
DOHERT1. I'm a subject matter expert, environmental remediation, and industrial services construction manager. We just completed building a $55 million desulfurization plant, which is the largest in North America and by far the most sophisticated. We got 3 times the capacity of 2 units when we only need 1. And that's because of their commitment to the environment. So they got redundancy, 3 times the capacity, and they just went and built another one down in Columbus. On top of that, they drove the price up on themselves by requiring that we hire local contractors so that they could keep that money in the community. So to get up here and say that these guys are taking chances with the environment is just not factual. So that's all I got.
Are there others that wish to provide testimony? If so, would you bring your card?
I'll just say something real quick.
Sorry if you could spell your name.
Nate Heiser. They may have done a lot of improvements the last 4 years. And that's evident. They did do some stuff. Maybe it works, maybe it don't. I don't know if it's not running. But let's just all remember that they never did it willingly. It was all court ordered to do it. They never did it on their own. So there you go.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to provide testimony this evening?
Brenda Kuhn, BRENDAKUHN. This
permit will further degrade Portage River after decades of already doing so. It's time to stop polluting and protect our water source, our wildlife, our bald eagles, our fish in Lake Erie. Has anyone tested the birds or the fish for disease to know the impact? If not, an environmental impact study should be performed for both animals and humans by the EPA and the CDC before selling them any more permits. The Clean Water Act violation discovered in 2019 were never remediated, and the problems grow by 7,500 tons each day when rain pours through the unlined rail cars. The risk of moving these toxic ponds closer to our water is irresponsible and unnecessary. Why have we stopped protecting the environment and instead wait until after disaster occurs? It's time to get back to protecting and preventing pollution to save our environment, as well as protecting our financial interests in Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Don Kuhn, ELN, KQHN. The social and economic damage will be monumental when the groundwater is contaminated. We cannot risk becoming a Superfund site. The Portage River not only affects our drinking water, but it affects Lake Erie. We have already lost a large number of tax-paying citizens who have been forced to sell their homes and farmland due to health issues or risks. Property values have plummeted. Our local waste now accounts for less than 3% of the incoming trash. This is an environmental injustice.
Any other testimony this evening? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Waylon Garza, spelled W-A-Y-L-O-N, representing Garza Dirtworks from Clyde. We've been in business about 10 years. We're one of the vendors that work at Sunny Farms Landfills, and over the last 10 years, we've been in business supporting your community. We've worked with Central County Land Bank, cleaning up your blight homes. A lot of demolition work is taking place. We've done work with them. I can tell you that we work with landfills from Wood County to Lorain County to Erie County, all over, and it's the best well-ran landfill, maintained of all the landfills in the area. I mean, there's a landfill almost in every county. They're needed. We do excavation work, demolition work, land clearing work. As a country, we need landfills. We're not going to get away from it. But we work in your community, cleaned up blight homes. Homes are meant for drug houses, stuff that's vacant, sitting. We took like a green space. We've seen new houses be built. We've done a lot in your community and improved a lot. So I can tell you for a fact, as we use them every week, landfills all over, within an hour radius of here, that it's a well-ran, well-maintained landfill. And
everybody has their own opinion.
About the dollar bill.
Is there any other testimony this evening? If not, I will go ahead and proceed to close out the hearing. So here is my contact information, and also panelists here this evening. You are welcome to contact us after the meeting with additional concerns or questions. But if there are no further requests to present testimony, we'll conclude the hearing. As a reminder, we will accept written comments on this permit application through next Thursday, May 18th at 5 p.m. You can send those comments to Ohio EPA, Ohio EPA, Division of Surface Water, Permits Processing, PO Box 1049, Columbus, Ohio. Or you can also email them to epa.dswcomments@epa.ohio.gov. Also want to stress that if you've not signed up on our sign-in sheet, I ask you to do so, so again you can receive updates on this matter as it moves forward. I do appreciate your time and your interest and your concerns that have been voiced tonight, and we appreciate your cooperation in Ohio EPA's decision-making process. The time is 7:39, and this hearing is adjourned.